My name is LauraTKelso. I'm the developer of the Savvy Senior Learning Series and associate broker with Next Home Champions Real Estate. It is just absolutely my pleasure to have you back for the beginning of season 4. So just a quick show of hands, who's new today? Awesome, well that is so exciting. You guys, it's such a testament. It really warms my heart that those of you who have been regular attendees for quite a while have trusted me enough to bring back your family and friends. And it is absolutely my goal to bring you excellent speakers and excellent information for all 10 of the sessions this year so that everyone who comes really feels like they walk away with something beneficial. So I hope that all of you had a great summer. I had the opportunity to watch my only daughter get engaged after her fiance dared skydiving for the first time before he proposed. So that was really cool. We also got to go to Greece with all 3 of our children and their significant others and spend some very special quality family time, which was awesome. So, as you can see, we're growing. So that really is a combination between all of you, and then also a huge part of that is just the educational partners I have here around the room. I am so excited to have them because, truth be told, there's no way that I could bring you such a quality educational series in such a wonderful venue if I did not have these partners that believed in this series and were willing to help support it. So we're working on figuring out some fun ways that you can also get to know them. We all know that this is not a selling event, and it never will be. But with that in mind, I feel really passionate about all of you having resources at your disposal long before you need them. So with that in mind, I just encourage you to get to know these people in the room because I vet the people that I partner with very carefully so that when you do need something or you have a friend or a family member that does, you will have them, you will already be familiar with their name, their face, and how they do their business. Along with those lines, we're doing a fun thing called Educational Sponsored Bingo today. So many of you guys got one of these bingo cards. So here's what's going to happen with this. So make sure, this is an assignment now, write your name now, okay? Because we're going to make it so that you guys don't have to take these home each time, all right? You can turn them back in with your evaluations today, and then you'll pick them up when you register next time. And when you take the time to talk with every single educational partner, and this does not mean walk up, sign my thing, it means give them 45 seconds to introduce who they are and what they do so that you're familiar with them. They will sign your sheet. And when you get this signed by everyone and turn it in, you're going to be entered into a drawing for a $100 Meyer gift certificate. So we're making this worth your while to just kind of have fun and get to know these guys. So, okay, so you all have your note-taking sheets. I'm going to encourage you to take notes. There's going to be a lot of great information today. Please hold all your questions till the end. We will definitely have time for questions at the end. So that is a good thing. And then, in addition to that, on your evaluation sheet that you'll fill out at the end, especially if you're a new attendee, please make sure we have your address. It just makes it so much easier for us to get the information out to you that we need to. And then in addition to that, I've added a little more of a description for future events so that you can sign up for the future event on the back. And also, if there are any other needs that you have that you want more information on, we've listed a whole group of them on the back. Just check that box, and I will do my best to follow up with you in a timely manner or have somebody else appropriate follow up with you. I'm not always as up on these as I'd like to be, so if you haven't heard from me, please do not feel shy about reaching out. I wear a lot of hats on any given day, so my life's a little crazy sometimes, but we really want to make sure that you get helped. All right, so all of the thoughts of living to 100. Do you guys think about that? It's kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, really. Raise your hand if you really think about that thought or thought about that lately of what it might be like to live to 100. Okay. So when my husband Mark and I have that conversation, we've both agreed that we don't necessarily want to live to 100. Like, that seems really old. It seems a little scary, and I have these visions of, being very tired, and maybe my body is kind of given out at some point, and yet I'm still here. And, well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could live to 100 and do it well? That's really the question. And believe it or not, there are a lot of people who are doing that. So I just last night got to binge a little Netflix and watching the special that has to do with the new blue zones in the world. These are areas of the world that have a larger concentration of centenarians than anywhere else, and it's really, really cool. So if you haven't checked that out, I would strongly recommend that. That's on Netflix. But in the meantime, in 2021, there were over 90,000 centenarians here in the United States. 90,000. Like, that's a lot. That's definitely a lot. So what does that mean for you and your family? Well, first off, it really means that everything that we have known in the past has changed. I mean, it really, truly has. Because once upon a time when families were, stayed very close-knit, and they often lived right around the corner from one another. And also, they just simply didn't live that long. It was very easy for younger generations to take care of older generations. But nowadays, if you're living to 100, this means a couple things. It means that your children are in their 80s. And it means your grandchildren are in their 60s. And your great-grandchildren have now turned into what we affectionately call the sandwich generation, where they are often working full-time, still raising families of their own, and then trying to provide some level of care to those older generations, depending on what that looks like. It might be as simple as going over to lift a heavy object or mow a lawn, or it might be full-time care for a loved one. And sometimes we're trying to do that from a different city and often a different state. So it really, really is challenging. So it means that the stakes of staying healthy and independent have become very, very high. Would you agree? You guys want to stay healthy, you want to stay independent, you want to be making your own decisions. How about your finances? Have you thought about what it looks like financially to live well into your 90s and even to 100? That makes a big difference as well. What about keeping both your mind and your social calendar engaged so that you have a great reason to get up and get out of bed every day? That makes a big difference in your life, the quality of your life, that you have joy, that you have the incentive to go out and do something and be productive every single day. So this is a huge subject, and I know that in these monthly presentations, we're barely going to be able to scratch the surface of these questions, but we're going to try our best, because that's all we can do. So without any further ado, I'm going to give these ladies the opportunity to introduce themselves. Unfortunately, Dr. Jason Beckwith of the Trillium Institute had to cancel almost last minute due to illness. So today you get the powerful ladies. I usually balance this out and try and have both, but I'm hoping that Jason will be back with us at a later date. So I'm going to start with Jennifer and have all of these gals introduce themselves and where they're from before we get started with questions.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Feierstein. I'm Associate State Director for AARP Michigan. I'm also an on-air personality with WOTV ABC4 and Wood TV8. And I'm also a new author of my debut novel, Not Your Shoe Size.
Good morning, my name is Jenna Smith. I am the owner of Vitality at Home and a physical therapist. We are a mobile physical and occupational therapy practice in the Grand Rapids area.
Good morning, my name is Teresa Schisler-Boichot and I'm the owner of Boichot Insurance Agency. I help folks navigate the process of individual insurance, small business insurance, and then of course Medicare and Social Security.
Wonderful, thank you, gals. And before I forget, this is always my little signal. Please take a moment and silence your cell phone if you haven't already. One of the things that we've done over the last year that's been really helpful is we do videotape every single one of these presentations. So if you have to miss one or even want to go back and just want to look at the information, you have the ability on YouTube or right from the GR Savvy Seniors website to watch the whole presentation start to finish, or to simply zone in on any individual speaker that you would like to hear again. So that's definitely a great bonus. All right, so we're gonna get started with Jennifer. And Jennifer, I'm so excited to have you here with us today. AARP is really changing the conversation around how people view mature adults. And can you start by telling us about what the Disrupt Aging Initiative is and how that came about with AARP?
Thank you, Laura. So by a show of hands, I want to see if you have ever said something like, oh, I'm too old for that. Raise your hands if you've ever caught yourself saying, I'm too old for that. How about if you said, I'm having a senior moment, can't find my car keys, I'm having a senior moment. Okay, do you know what that is? That's ageism. And what's interesting is ageism is the last socially accepted ism in our society. And yet we still perpetuate it through humor and through saying things like, oh, I'm too old for that. A lot of other things that I'll get into as well. So at AARP, we launched a campaign called Disrupt Aging, and it's to change the conversation about ageism in America. And our CEO, Joanne Jenkins, wrote a book called Disrupt Aging, which helps people understand what it is, what it looks like, how do you fight against it. It's a nonfiction book. I took it one step further because in our society, there are not a lot of good books that focus on older adults because the publishing world has some ageism as well. And so I took it one step further to write a fiction book about aging. Now, I use a lot of silly foot puns, so, you know, I can be a heel, so sorry for being corny as I use them. And one thing about nonfiction books is that they have footnotes. And so I wanted to write a book that didn't have footnotes, and so Not Your Shoe Size came about because of that. In the book, and what we do is about helping people to understand ageism. And so that's what our campaign is. I actually go into colleges and universities and high schools to teach students about ageism because we want to catch people when they're young. Because once they've perpetuated the ideas in their own head and they've grown up with those ideas, they have actually a more detrimental lifespan ahead of them, which we'll get into. And so I go in and I do these curriculum lessons with students and in college to be able to educate them about what ageism looks like in their careers, how older adults will impact them, and how that crossroads will intersect. And I have students in the high schools that I have them create greeting cards that have an age-positive message. Because how many times do we go to the grocery store or the Hallmark store and get a greeting card and it's Maxine, or it's, you look good for your age and you're only 32, right? I mean, just all this really negative stuff. And it's funny, haha, you get, you know, a kick out of it. But it's just, the joke is getting old, right? And we want to elevate the aging process to be something that's beautiful and that's something to look forward to and that it's not a joke. And so I have these students create these greeting cards that then I send out to volunteers throughout Michigan that are volunteers for AARP. So shameless plug, if you want to be a volunteer for AARP, you can get one of these greeting cards. So anyways, so this is one of the things that we're doing to really help fight against it through the messaging with students, the books, and just having a conversation that changes the conversation about aging.
Okay, so in terms of a person's perception, just like if you can kind of elaborate on what you are already saying, in terms of how a person views themselves and how it can actually influence their life expectancy and their quality of life.
So there is a researcher by the name of Dr. Becca Levy, and she wrote a book just recently called Ageism Unmasked. And this is not her first book. She's a brilliant researcher when it comes to aging. And she wanted to find out how detrimental ageism is to people. And what she discovered through her research is that if you have a negative sense of growing older, right? Like you think of it as decline, you think of it as slowing down, you think of it that you have no purpose and nothing to offer, those kinds of negative beliefs will actually shorten your lifespan up to 7.5 years. As opposed to the people who have a very positive viewpoint of aging where they look at it and go, you know what, there is still adventure to be had. There is still purpose to my life until my very last breath. There is something that I'm still supposed to accomplish. And yes, I might be slowing down, but who doesn't want to slow down in the rat race of life a little bit? And so if you view it from a positive standpoint, you can actually live up to 7.5 years longer. The studies also show that positive age beliefs can significantly lessen your likelihood of getting dementia. It's really good for your brain to have positive messaging that you're feeding yourself and, of course, society. So if you're providing yourself with positive messages about aging, you will ward off dementia. You will decrease the likelihood of depression, anxiety, stress. Also, interestingly enough, they have shown that through the research that you can perform better on hearing tests and also on memory tasks. So it really does translate into better aging as you get older in life. And this is why we try to capture it in young people, because of the fact that if you can tell people when they're young how great it is to be older, and yes, there's, throughout life there's always hurdles and there's always, slowness and, you're starting to transition away from doing the things that you used to do. But that's just part of the evolving process of life. So if we can capture people when they're young and how to educate them about the great things about growing older, they will have a better quality life. And the same is true for you, even at your age, that if you look at what you have left in life and you look at it as a positive thing, you will fare much better.
So in terms of ageism, which has really, up until a few years ago, it was not a term that any of us were very familiar with, and now I feel like it's very much a household term. There are actually some very specific types of ageism. Can you distinguish between what those actual types are?
There are 3 types of ageism. There's internal ageism, and those are the self-limiting beliefs that we hold. So that's like I can't do that at this age. I'm too old for that. Things that hold us back, the barriers to doing and accomplishing things because of what we believe or what we think we're capable of or what we believe that society thinks that we're capable of. So those are the internal self-limiting beliefs about ageism. And then there are interpersonal. So those are the conversations that you have with somebody else. Oh, you look good for your age. Or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The things that you tell other people, those are the interpersonal ageism messages that take place. And then there's the institutional. And this is probably the most sinister because this occurs in our society, it occurs in the workplace, it occurs even in your doctor's office. There's a term called elder speak, and healthcare is notorious for having ageism in their practice because elder speak is when you come in maybe with a caregiver, maybe an adult child who's coming along to an appointment with you, and what does the doctor do? The doctor talks to the other person and not you. Or the doctor is condescending and says, dearie, little taps like this. Or, do you understand what I'm saying, or do you need me to write this down for you? Very negative in healthcare. And it's been proven. And then also in the workforce too. There was just a new research study that came out that was talking about how much ageism affects women in the workplace. And it's very detrimental because they're like, if you're too young in the workplace, then you're not given the credibility because you're not considered experienced or you don't have the knowledge to be able to do something. Then you become a middle-ager, and then, you're having kids, you're a little distracted because you're parenting, or you're caring for your aging parents, and then you become an older adult, and she's just kind of biding her time till retirement, she's unflexible, or he doesn't, have the technological skills that we're looking for, and so no matter what stage of life you're at, you face ageism. And so it can affect younger people because they're deemed as uncredible, and it can affect older people because they're considered, they're just slowing down, or they don't have the technological savvy, which is absolutely not true. Actually, older adults are starting more businesses that are in the technology field than younger people. And this is this type of information that we try to educate people about, because of the fact that it is so harmful to our culture.
So during one of our first conversations, you had actually told me a story of how you had experienced ageism personally in your life. And so if you would kind of share that story with us, and then also if people are encountering this in their own lives, some examples and some suggestions on how they should respond.
Yeah, so this is so interesting. So I got my degree in broadcasting and journalism in college because I wanted to be able to tell stories through the media. Right out of college, I elected to be a stay-at-home mom, and about a decade later, I tried to get my foot back in the door in broadcasting. I had applied for a TV position as an on-air reporter. And in that interview with the news director, I was told that I was too seasoned to be on TV. Do you want to know how old I was? I was 31 years old. 31 years old, and I was kicked out of TV for being too seasoned. I wish the story was fiction, but it's not. So I naturally did the next best thing, and I thought, I'm going to go into the field of gerontology, which is the study of being too seasoned. I figured I'm well qualified, and I'm going to figure this out. So I went into gerontology and knew nothing. At the same time, my marriage was going downhill faster than an Olympic skier, and so I thought I better, pull my bootstraps and get to work and figure out what this means. And so I started working first at Care Resources, which is the PACE program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. I see some of you nodding your heads. Fabulous program. And then I kept working up the career ladder and eventually became Associate State Director for AARP Michigan, and I've been in that position now for 10 years. So I've been a gerontologist now for 15 years, and what's funny is I am doing more TV now today than ever. And I'm almost 50 years old, so 20 years later, I'm doing more TV. And what's interesting is my platform is being seasoned. So I have been working with Wood TV8 and ABC4 for the last 8 or 9 years doing commercials on providing positive messaging for all people 50 plus. So all of my tips, they're 30-second commercials, and they're tips and tricks on aging well. Then during the pandemic, I launched a TV show called Real Possibilities, which airs on ABC4, and all of the content is to help older adults live their best lives. And so that airs on Tuesdays at noon on ABC4, and I interview local leaders and nonprofit organizations that all have something to do with older adults and helping people age better. And then I'm also a guest host on the lifestyle TV show 8 West. So go figure, right, that that's how the path would go. But that just goes to show that, you know, if I had held to that belief that I was too seasoned to be on TV, I would never have pushed myself to keep moving forward to get into the position that I'm in. And that's where those negative self-limiting beliefs can really just eat away at you, because it could have. And I didn't know how to respond. So the second part to the question is, how do you respond to this when this happens? I had no idea. I was 31 years old. I didn't have a lot of life experience to be able to fight back against this. So, you know, one response is do nothing, and that was my response. Another response is to call it out for what it is, right? You know, help people understand, you know, gosh, you know, that, you know, you wouldn't say that to somebody, you know, if it was like, oh, you look good for your age. You wouldn't say that to somebody who's 18 years old. So why say it to somebody who's 68 years old? And then the other thing is, you know, you can, like in the workplace, you can take it to HR. The problem with age discrimination in the workforce is it's very difficult to prove. Very difficult. Because they will use things like, you know, we're going in another direction. Or, you know, you've had your best years behind you. Things like that that are a little more covert, a little more difficult to prove because they're just very subliminal. And so you have the opportunity to, I mean, you can do nothing, right? I mean, it's just sometimes it is the easy way out, or you can kind of push back against it and challenge something. Like, you know, why do you say that? You know, what, when you hear, like, you know, the jokes or whatever, you know, what makes you perpetuate that? You know, kind of step into it. It doesn't have to be argumentative, but just, you know, try to find out where their belief systems lie with that. And then do a lot of research about this so that you can start to see it for what it is and call it out for what it is, so that you yourself aren't holding on to those beliefs or perpetuating them in society either.
So much of this series is always about starting a conversation, and I think this is a really, really important conversation. And a lot of times these are internal conversations, like what Jennifer is saying, where we really have to tell ourselves, wait a second, I'm not too old to do this. Absolutely, I'm not too old to learn this, to do this, to figure out, you know, how to find a way. I think that's very important. And then the other conversations are with our friends and with our family as well. And so much of this I know from being a daughter that, you know, I'm one of those kids that sometimes feels like they know best, and my wonderful mother's sitting out here in the audience, but this is so much about you as a demographic, learning for yourselves the things that are important to you and that are going to lead you to the best future, so that if your kids come with the finger pointing, you can just turn around and say, you know what, I got this. I've already done this. I've already prepared for this. I've already, you know, I have resources for all these things that you're talking about. You don't have to worry about me because I've got this. And that's a really great feeling for both sides of that. Now, so much about getting older is really about aging with grace, and it tends to be how we either embrace the aging process or how we fight it. And you wrote a really fun fictional book about this called Not Your Shoe Size. So if you could just talk a little bit more about the storyline of that and how the idea of that book came about.
So the story, Not Your Shoe Size, is the story of two women who are aging in life together from the age of 10 to 100. And in the 5th grade, they're given this challenge to write their obituary to determine how they're going to live their life to become 100 years old. Now, the two characters have very opposing viewpoints about how to age in life. The one character is about embracing her age, her geriatric sneakers, her gray hair, her love handles, her crow's feet. The other character is all about anti-aging. She is chasing after the elusive fountain of youth, trying every remedy under the sun to stay young. Now, the two women are lifelong best friends, but they have these very opposing viewpoints on how to age well. And the reason I captured it like that was because the fact that those two women represent each of us. Because in life, we want to feel okay with gray hair and wrinkles and geriatric shoes. And yet our society, which is obsessed with youth, doesn't allow us to age okay like that, right? It's an anti-aging world. You see all the magazine headlines, anti-aging and defy aging, and 60 is the new 40, and I have yet to see a 40-year-old who says that a 60-year-old is like them, right? 60 is the new 60. You get to embrace your age and be who you want to be. And so the two characters in the book really represent the internal battle that every woman faces. And for women, it is a much harder world to grow old in than it is for men. When men get gray hair, they're distinguished, they're a silver fox, right? But when women get gray hair, well, they're a little washed up and she's not aging so well. And that's the truth. And so when we fight against this and we want to embrace our age, like how do we do it? How do we go through this aging process and age gracefully in an ageist society? And as I mentioned, the publishing world is also ageist because they don't write a lot of great books for older adults. And so I thought, all right, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna write that book that's very witty, that's very relatable, so that women can understand the aging process and feel comfortable in their own skin. And there's no right or wrong way to choose because it's all very individualized. But it's the fact that nobody should tell you how you should be doing it.
Awesome, thank you. And is there anything that we missed that you'd like to add?
I would just say, going back to my original comments, that how you view your age and your opportunities and your capabilities really does have an effect on how well you age in life. So embrace your age, feel good about where you're at, because when you think about what you offer to society, you have so much wisdom and value and experience. And there are cultures, the Japanese culture, the Mexican culture, the Indian culture, where their seniors, their elders are revered, right? Like it is an honor to become an older adult. Our society, we don't have that, and that's so unfortunate. And so by pushing back against the ageism a little bit and being active, showing people just through who you are, the vibrancy of older adults, we might be able to move the needle a little bit on this. So I am so glad you're here because we all want to try to figure out this code on how to live well to be 100, right? You know, if we're going to be here on this earth, we want a quality of life. It's not necessarily about the quantity, but it's about the quality. And so while we're here, what are the nuggets of wisdom that we can learn and take along the way so that we can live our best lives?
Jennifer, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to Jenna now, and Jenna and I have been in a senior advocacy group now together for a couple of years, and you are 100% focused on helping people stay healthy and quickly come back from a surgery or an injury. So tell me why you chose this area and some of the things that make your business super unique.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So I chose to become a physical therapist because I grew up with a dad that had a progressive neurological disease. And as he aged, I saw him slowly lose his mobility and his independence to no fault of his own. And I spent many years feeling very helpless. Like, what can I do, right? But there was nothing that I could do. His disease was just taking over his body. So I vowed to myself that I would never take for granted my physical abilities, and then made it my mission to help whoever I could, whoever would listen, whoever would let me help, that they can maintain their mobility and their independence. This ultimately morphed into me starting Vitality at Home. I had worked for quite a few years at a large physical therapy corporation and never felt like I could treat my patients with the frequency or the volume of therapy that I thought that they needed and frankly deserved. Our healthcare system is a very reactive system, so somebody has an injury, somebody has an illness, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? What can we do to make this person healthy enough to go home, right? It has nothing to do with maybe preventing that injury or that illness in the first place. And whose definition is it of healthy, right? Is it the lab values at the hospital shake out and then the person can go home, or you can walk a certain distance, maybe 10 feet, 20 feet, and then the physical therapist will let you go home and say, you're good. And then you get home and you think, well, nobody checked my stairs, nobody made sure I could get in and out of bed. Like, what is this, right? So I just saw that there were huge gaps in our rehab process. There was nothing before an injury or an illness, and there really wasn't anything after the rehab process for people. And I truly believe that being proactive and working on preventing these illnesses for the aging community, the aging community will be much better off, right? So Vitality at Home has these services to prevent the injury or illness. We also have the rehab piece of both physical and occupational therapy to help rehab back from those things. And then we also have the wellness services. So after that rehab piece, a lot of people feel like they're left in the dust, right? Well, they gave us this exercise program and we don't really know what to do with it, or they gave us these exercises and frankly, I think that they're a joke. Like, I can bend and straighten my knees at the counter all day long. Like, this is not helping me get up and down the bleachers at my grandkids' soccer game. This is not helping me lift my suitcase into the overhead bin of the airplane. This is not helping me do the things that I need to do to continue to live the life that I frankly saved for all of my working years. So that said, we also have the unique opportunity to provide our clients with one-on-one therapy in the comfort and convenience of their own home, which makes exercise and or rehab quite a bit less intrusive to people's busy lives, right? We retired, I have so many clients joke with me, like they never knew what they did before retirement, right? Their schedules are packed. And we tend to put our physical health on the back burner because a lot of times exercise is not comfortable, right? Nobody likes to exercise, it's not fun. So having us come into the home is a lot more convenient and takes a lot less time. And to be honest, it's the most functional place that you can get an exercise program that will really help you achieve your retirement goals.
That's the place where we need help the most, is figuring out the things that you do on a regular basis and how to get those done. So many people have that perception that declining health and mobility is a natural part of the aging process, much like what you were referring to, Jen, as well. So tell me why you agree or disagree with this and how you convey this to your clients, especially if they might hold some of those limiting beliefs themselves.
Yeah, so I 100% disagree with that statement. Sure, in the beginning, right, starting at the age of 30, our muscle mass starts to decline and our bone mass starts to decline and our thinking starts to slow down. But those are by no means inevitable, right? So our lifestyle choices really are what drive how we age. So while we do naturally lose things, we do naturally slow down, there is no evidence out there that has to be the case. You can build strength, you can improve your balance, and you can even improve your cognition as you get older. I tell my clients that have very, very negative stereotypes on aging that what your mind believes, your body will achieve, right? So if you have this view on aging that's all doom and gloom, honestly, you're probably right. Your life is not going to be that fulfilled. But if you believe that your best years are yet to come and you wake up every day living out your purpose, you'll thrive.
the first time that she spoke at one of these meetings, she actually, and most of the group, we're probably average in our 50s, and she had us do a bunch of exercises that she takes her clients through. I'm telling you, I was tired. It was tough. And she's like, oh no, you should be able to do this at 80 or whatever. It made a big difference in perception, for sure. So one of the things that you address on your website is that people with chronic pain that have gone through PT in the past and have not found relief are certainly out there. So what advice would you hope to offer patients who fall into this category where, yup, been there, done that, went to PT, it didn't do anything?
Yeah, sure. So persistent pain, or as we commonly know it, chronic pain, is a really tricky thing to treat. There are so many different treatment options out there, and every physical therapist you go to, or occupational therapist, is going to have a different way of treating that pain. So we understand that pain is not a normal part of aging, right? It's just not. But it is the leading cause of disability in older adults. So as we get older, we stop moving as much, so we have a little bit more pain. So then we stop moving even more, and then we have even more pain. And then it turns into this vicious cycle where before you know it, your pain has taken over your life and you're no longer doing the things that you love to do. So for people that have tried PT in the past and it hasn't worked, I would really recommend give it a second opinion. And honestly, maybe even a third or a fourth opinion, because there is a therapist out there that you will mesh with. Chances are your body just didn't respond to their treatment technique, but that's not the only treatment technique out there. So finding a therapist that can assess your body and determine the best treatment technique for what you need, provide you with a safe and effective exercise program is far more beneficial than you no longer moving and then having more pain and then being afraid to move because you're in pain, and then the next thing you know, you're completely dependent, and then there's no quality of life in that.
Yeah, I know on the website it really talked about that idea of trying to find the source of the pain. And sometimes that's going to take multiple efforts before you can actually figure out what is the appropriate, where it's coming from, and then in turn how to treat it best.
Yeah.
So there are a number of ailments like Parkinson's and even osteoporosis that develop in older adults even when they've done everything in terms of living a healthy lifestyle. So what are some of the specific things that people with these diseases can do to continue to live a full life, and how do you help that happen with the clients that you work with?
So while there is no cure for diseases like Parkinson's disease and osteoporosis, there are so many ways to manage the symptoms and slow the progress of those symptoms, right? So exercise is a vital piece to this and something that people with these diseases can control, right? A lot of times we get slapped with a diagnosis and we're told this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen, and you're just looking at this like downward spiral like, oh my goodness, what do I even do about it? A safe and effective exercise plan can really give you the empowerment to take whatever diagnosis you've been given and just roll with it, right? Know that as long as I'm doing whatever I can do to manage this disease, I'm gonna be okay. That said, when we're speaking about Parkinson's disease in particular, I think it's really important and beneficial even to speak with a therapist to know that, just because you have Parkinson's disease doesn't mean you automatically lose your muscle strength, right? Parkinson's disease does not take away your strength. It's a neurological disease that actually makes your movement smaller, okay? So if you catch it early and you get on a really good exercise program that incorporates strength and power and balance and endurance and flexibility, you can slow down the rate at which your symptoms start to come in. The other thing that we do a lot with our Parkinson's patients is train the caregiver or train the spouse or train any family member, friends, whoever is there with them on what to say to them in order to trigger improved mobility, right? So with Parkinson's, sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, step big, take a big step, stand up with a lot of effort. You know, there are a lot of tips and tricks that you can externally tell these people that can improve their movement substantially. The key is to catch it early and to be consistent with the exercise programs and make sure that the exercise programs are at the level of intensity that they need to be in order to make a difference. Speaking of osteoporosis specifically, again, you know, we hear all the time, my doctor gave me this diagnosis of osteoporosis. I can't do anything anymore. I'm so terrified to walk outside. I don't want to trip. I don't want to slip. I don't want to fall because the doctor told me if I fell, I'm going to fracture my hip and then I'm going to end up in a nursing home. That's really, really detrimental to a person's psyche, especially when you have osteoporosis, okay? So yes, your bone density is decreasing, and yes, you are at a higher risk for fracturing those bones if you do fall. But what if you had a strengthening program that strengthened your muscles so much so that it could actually improve your bone density and decrease your risk for falls? And oftentimes we see when somebody has a really strong exercise program, that turns into confidence, empowerment, and then it's no longer like, oh gosh, I can't go outside. It's like, what are we gonna do next? Because I know that this activity is actually gonna help my bone density, right? So things like weightlifting, things like jumping, right? All help your bone density. So, you know, when we have these clients that receive these diagnoses and become terrified with, you know, oh my goodness, I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna end up in a nursing home, we really do work closely with them to understand what their goals are. What do you want? What do you want this to look like in 10 years? What do you want it to look like in 20 years? And as we were talking earlier, what if you live to 100? What do you want this to look like? What do you want to be able to do? And then we move backwards from there and empower our clients to be able to do those things eventually through exercise.
Yeah, I think that idea of reducing these limiting beliefs is so, so powerful. So in this Netflix special on the blue zones, one of the things that I watched last night actually was in one of the blue zones that was Sardinia, I believe, actually the age of the residents, the older ages correlated with how steep the area that they lived in. So this is a really mountainous area, and believe it or not, there was the largest concentration of the oldest people in the steepest areas, where these people had to do steps every single day simply to, you know, get their groceries and live their lives. And that was really interesting to me that made such a difference. So much of remaining healthy is simply doing many of the things that we already know to do. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know the things that I should do on a daily basis, and I also know the things that I do on a daily basis, and they are not always the same. So tell us more about your concept of health coaching for older adults, and specifically any personal stories that you can share of adults that you have worked with that started out feeling like maybe they couldn't do something and ended up realizing that they really could.
Yeah. So I believe that everybody, no matter what your age or what your stage, needs a health coach, right? I completely stand behind it for exactly the reasons that Laura said, right? We all know what we should be doing, but we don't really do that. So with our clients specifically, we work with older adults, 55 and older. Health coaching helps our clients quiet the noise, fight all the health noise that they hear from the media and from the internet and from the magazines that they receive. And we help them hone in on the healthy choices that they need to make in order to achieve their individual goals, right? Everybody is so different and everybody's aging process looks so differently that what works well for you as far as healthy choices isn't gonna work well for your spouse, it's not gonna work well for your neighbor, right? So it's really, getting to know our clients on a level of what is it that, getting back to what do you want your last decade of life to look like, okay? And then we reverse engineer the process. Okay, so if you want to be able to go hiking at 80 years old, you need to be able to do X, Y, Z now in order to get there then. So we take a look at a person's current health status, we take a look at their lifestyle, and we really tease out their goals. And then we develop a program that's realistic for them. This program starts as an exercise program, and then it can morph into providing other healthy habit tips and tricks and accountability. So things like stress management education, sleep, nutrition, all those types of things. So we work with a wide range of individuals. So we work with that 96-year-old whose goal is to literally just live in their own home for the rest of their life, to the 64-year-old grandmother that wants to continue to vacation with her daughter and her children and go swimming and hiking while they're on vacation. So one of my recent clients came to me having tried everything. And when I tell you she tried everything, this woman had a treadmill in her home, a stationary bike. She had more exercise equipment than the YMCA, all dusty, by the way. She had every exercise book, every exercise DVD, and all of the exercise programs out of her prevention magazine, right, that claims to have better balance in 15 days or, improve your strength. So she had all this stuff, but nothing was working, right? So she came to us frustrated because she felt like she wasn't able to keep up with her grandkids anymore, and she was terrified that if she could no longer carry her suitcase throughout airports, she would have to start traveling. And in her retirement, her grandkids and her travel were the most important things to her. So she went through the first step of our program. We got a really good idea of what her goals are. And within 2 weeks, she was emailing me, telling me that she was already starting to feel strong. Fast forward 3 months, and she's telling us that she has more strength and more energy than she's had in years. And at 74, she just came back from a trip in Europe with her sister, where she schlepped her suitcase all over the place and went on hikes that she, honestly, even before starting the program, had the idea of I can't hike anymore, who does this? And she did it.
So how does that feel to you guys? Are you starting to just feel empowered that you can do this, that whatever those goals are, that whatever life you've envisioned for yourself, you can truly make that happen? There are ways to do it, and it all starts with, there's no one right answer. It's a combination of the physical things that you do, what we put into our bodies, what we do socially as a support system, our belief system, our faith system. All of these things work together to help us to age well in the way that we probably all desire to age to some degree. So Jenna, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to Teresa. And Teresa, I know that you are an expert in the very complicated and ever-changing world of medical insurance, and specifically Medicare. So for starters, what steps would you recommend for people who are just becoming eligible for Medicare to make sure that they choose a plan that best serves their personal needs?
Wonderful, thank you so much. Before I answer that question, I really want to tell you a story about myself so that you can understand my history. So 20 years ago, I was recruiting. I'm an engineer. I have my master's in engineering. Went to school at Michigan Tech, and I worked for Caterpillar for many years, and I recruited for them for many years. And I was on a recruiting trip, and unfortunately I was walking after a long day of recruiting and had dinner, and a drunk driver hit me while I was walking, and I flew 30 feet and landed on my knees. And I was 29 years old. I was in really good shape. I was a college athlete. I played every kind of sport you can imagine, rock climb, scuba dive. We rollerbladed with the baby stroller, like we did everything, right? And all of a sudden, I got up. Well, I didn't remember flying. I wasn't, it was only a few seconds, I don't remember, but when I started trying to get up, everybody's screaming. I didn't really know what happened. And they made me sit, the cop came, took me to the hospital, and because she hit me from behind, my muscles were tense. So I didn't break any bones. However, I did other damage, which I'll tell you in a second. So they took me to the hospital. I had a really severe concussion. You know, my legs were all bruised. So I had to get a ride back to Peoria, Illinois from Michigan Tech because I couldn't do the plane. And I'll fast forward 3.5 years. I went to 50 plus doctors because I couldn't walk down the block. I couldn't hold my kid. I couldn't give him a bath. I couldn't vacuum. Really what I did was I got dressed and I could walk to work and do my job, and I gave my job my life, and then I would come home and I was in so much pain and I couldn't take care of my family. You know what I mean? And I was an athlete and I couldn't hold my child. And they told me, well, when I first got hit, they told me if you ever want to get pregnant again, you better get pregnant right now because I was internally bleeding. And thank God for Ashton. He's a blessing in our life. But I did get pregnant, but while he was growing up, there was a lot of things I couldn't do. And even with like my daughter playing softball or dancing, I love to dance. But they knew I could dance. Mommy could dance for about 30 seconds, and then I was done. Or like throwing a ball. I could throw or kick the ball for 30 seconds or so, and then I was done. And we would go on big trips. I get a wheelchair. I could walk for a little while, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but then I was done. And if we were going to Disney World or something, I didn't want to go back to the hotel and sit on the bed. I wanted to be with my family. So fast forward, I went to Mayo Clinic. We moved around because Caterpillar moved us every 3 to 5 years. And we were in Georgia, and I went to Mayo Clinic because these doctors kept saying, oh, it's in your head. Just take some Tylenol and go home. There's nothing wrong. You didn't break a bone. And they kind of figured out that I had damaged my nerves. So, like, even sitting here today, like, I felt lots of vibration. And those vibrations or, like, a loud noise or something triggers pain. And then also, there was something going on with my hips. They really couldn't figure out what was wrong 20 years ago. So fast forward, about 7 years ago, I had moved to different jobs, forced myself to work. I was good at what I did, and I loved what I did. I held lots of executive positions for different companies. But Caterpillar reorganized, and they forced me into a job that was traveling. I was traveling 90% of the time. And I told them before they gave it to me, I was like, I'll do this, but I really can't. I really shouldn't. And 9 months later, all I could do seriously is I drove to the parking deck, I could walk to my desk, my friends would go up and get me water on the second floor, and I would walk home. And I was walking like this. I was hunched over. The doctor finally said, you need to take a leave of absence. And Mayo Clinic had been asking me to do this pain camp. It's like a 3.5-week camp, and it's not really for pain, it's really to figure out how to get active, how to change your thoughts, how to figure out what's really going on, because my sight was changing every day, my hearing would change every day, and that's all the nerves, right? And some of that stuff, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? But doctors still didn't know. So I did go to that pain camp because I wasn't gonna live like I was living. It wasn't gonna happen. I wasn't gonna do it. And you were talking, Jenna, it's a cycle. So I've been in the cycle a few times, but if you're in so much pain and you don't move, then you don't sleep, then you sit more, and it's a cycle, and it's mentally exhausting, and your closest people don't want to be around you. And not to say they love you, but you become negative because you just don't know how to handle what you've been given. And so I went to the camp, and it was refreshing to hear that everybody except for 3 of us out of 40 people were on disability. 3 of us were not on disability. But I work with people on disability every day, but in my mind, I knew I could do it. I mean, I know I could do it. So, a couple years ago, well, 5, 6 years ago, I moved back up here and I was working for a manufacturing company. And I was walking a lot. It was very high stress. I was a director of a 3,000 person company, and it was in 10 states. And so I was traveling, doing all that stuff that you're supposed to do when you're in that position. And I decided, I could do that for 5 more years and go on disability because the stress alone was making me worse. Or I could quit and do something else with my life that I could keep doing. And that's when I found, and my friends had been doing this for a while, so I tried this, and I love it. I'm able to relate to so many people. I'm able to help them in so many ways because even though we have different symptoms or issues with our body, a lot of it's mental. It's physical, by all means, it's physical. But the hard part is getting over the mental part. Getting over the new normal, because it's a new normal. What you could do 20, 40 years ago, you can't do anymore. However, there's things you can do, and you got to figure out, embrace that new normal, and figure out how to have and love your life, but with this new normal. So that's just a quick little bit about me. I mean, I just had hip surgery 2.5 weeks ago because for 18 years, they didn't know what was wrong with my hips. And come to find out, everything was shredded in my hips, like all the tendons and labrum and all that. But I had kept so active, I held my hips together, with my muscles because I would not give up. I was not giving up my life. And so, thank God, I found a doctor in Grand Rapids that figured it out, and it's taken twice, but I think this worked. And then we can do the other one. But as far as Medicare goes, back to the question, it's really great insurance, especially if you've been in corporate insurance. It's wonderful. You have a 7-month window where you can pick what you want to do, and there's actually 2 different types of Medicare insurance. It's not the companies. Forget the companies. I cover every company in the state, but there's Advantage plans and there's a Medigap plan. And the first thing I do is explain that difference, because if someone has ever had cancer, stroke, heart attack, any life insurance questions, the only time you'll get approved, probably, for that Medigap plan is when you first turn 65, because they are guaranteed to accept you. If you're healthy, you can go to that Medicare Advantage plan and then hop back over to a Medigap plan if you want. But that first 7 months when you first turn 65 is so critical to figure out what direction you want to go. So I'll keep, hopefully that helps.
And it is very, very complicated. So not only getting on the right plan in the first place, but then continually revisiting your plan to make sure that as your needs change, that you're on the right plan as well. So it's an unfortunate reality that seniors on fixed incomes often have to make a lot of medical decisions based on what they can afford and not necessarily on the best medication or treatment option. So what is your best advice for seniors in this category and how they can still have get the best medication and treatment that will truly help them?
That's a great question. So first, I actually meet a lot of seniors who are on Medicare and just a prescription drug plan. Just know if you just have Medicare and not some kind of supplement or Advantage plan, you pay 20%, Medicare pays 80%, and there's no maximum out of pocket. So if something crazy happens and you have cancer or you're in the hospital for a couple weeks, you owe 20% of that full bill. There's no max. So that's why it's so critical to have something in addition to your Medicare, so there's a maximum. Otherwise, if something happens, all your savings is going to go into some kind of medical bill, and it doesn't have to at all. And I was so relieved when I really learned this system, because I was scared. I mean, my bills have been $500,000 over the last 20 years, and how was I ever going to take care of that? That scared the crap out of me. But it doesn't have to, because if you're protecting yourself, that won't happen. As far as the prescriptions, really look at generics. A lot of times, I know you guys most know about the donut hole and the coverage gap. Mainly, I'll just quickly explain, if you're roughly between 40, if your cost of your drug, not what you're paying, but if the cost of your drug goes to $4,500, you're gonna end up from 45 to roughly 7,500, you're gonna pay 25% of the cost of your drug. And then after 7,500, the Medicare changes that number a little bit every year, but after 7,500, it goes way down. But you don't have, most people don't have to be there. Eliquis, some of these really expensive drugs that you're on, some of them don't have alternatives because they're new and they've been out there, but a lot of them do. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the doctors can't keep up with what's your level. If something's generic, if a certain drug or a certain company covers it better than another, they just can't. And so you have to be your own advocate. You need to have somebody in your corner like me, so that we can look up your drugs every year. Make sure that you're still on the best plan to reduce your overall costs. Do a mail order. I know some people don't like mail orders, but most companies now, if you do a 3-month supply for your mail order, generics are all zero. So that can right there reduce your costs. If you have to take a very expensive drug, your doctor can submit a tier exception. So let's say it's a brand drug that's a tier 4. Generics are 1 and 2, tier 1 and 2. A brand drug is 3 through 5. So let's say it's a really expensive brand drug. The doctor can submit a tier exception or a formulary exception. You don't have to remember this, but your doctor can submit some paperwork to the health insurance company to try to get it reduced to a different tier, so then it's less money. 2 other things. If you are on a fixed income and you really don't have much cash assets, less than $2,000, it's a 5-minute application for me to apply for extra help through Social Security. It's not Medicare, it's not your health insurance, it's totally separate, it's through Social Security, and it drastically reduces your costs. The most expensive brand drug for a 90-day supply was about $10.40 versus hundreds of dollars a month you could be paying. And then the last one is if all else fails, like I have a lady on MS right now, and they want her to take, she just emailed me a drug that's $200,000 a month. My goodness. But it really was. But in all these advertisements, most of those drugs are not approved by Medicare yet. So they advertise all this stuff on TV, but a lot of times, you go and try to get it, and then it's not covered. But go to the manufacturer. Every manufacturer has, even if you have money in the bank or whatever, if it's a really expensive drug, they have programs to help, and most people don't even try. So all they can say is no.
Yeah, I went to pick up a prescription earlier this week, and they're like, well, insurance isn't covering this. I said, well, I can probably pay it out of pocket, $1,000. I'm like, no, I won't be getting that. So yeah, it's crazy that we have to make decisions based on those things. So we've talked a lot today about the concept of staying healthy. So what are some of the things that insurance companies are doing to help people proactively stay healthy? And how can people tell if these things are already included in our insurance plan? Because I don't know about you guys, but I do not spend a lot of time reading any of the fine print on virtually anything in my life. And I know from Teresa, there are things that these companies offer that we may not even know are offered.
Well, it's a great question. It's hard to know. There's over 12 just Medicare Advantage companies in the state of Michigan. And like, for example, Priority Health has about 15 to 20 plans of their own, Medicare Advantage plans. And Blue Cross has about 12. So there's hundreds of Medicare Advantage plans out there, really. The best option is to meet with somebody every year. Your needs change. So maybe this year you need dentures, but next year you're gonna have a surgery and you need PT. So this year we need to get a plan that has more dental coverage. Next year we need something that has better PT coverage. You don't have to stay on a plan. If a plan, if you're paying for a Medicare Advantage plan, if it's not a $0 premium, you probably haven't reviewed your plan in several years. You really shouldn't be on anything but a $0 premium Medicare Advantage plan anymore, because every single company has many. The competition has allowed us to have better benefits, which is phenomenal for us. But some of the benefits, Brain HQ, all the companies now have apps to help you play games or memory things, just things to trigger your memory to keep you active. They all have gym membership for free. I know Priority Health and United Healthcare allow you to go to MVP. All of them allow you to go to the Croc Center, Planet Fitness. You guys, they have water aerobics, they have a therapy pool that I go in. It makes a huge difference. You don't have to do water therapy with a teacher if you don't want, but once you've gone to therapy, they can give you the exercises to use, those foam dumbbells. I mean, I do it now, like I have to, because physically sometimes I can't lift like my mind wants to lift. I mean, I threw javelin and hammer and shot in college. So I knew, I was like lifting. I could lift, but my body can't do that anymore, and sometimes my mind wants to. But that water therapy is huge, especially in the beginning, to get your strength up so then you can progress to more advanced things. Over-the-counter allowances. Almost all the plans have over-the-counter allowances. Each company has so much money, so some have like less over-the-counter, but they might have transportation. A lot of them have companion care now, where someone can come clean your home, they can take you to the grocery store, they can mow the lawn. If you can do it, of course it's good, but like for me, I have a housekeeper now, because I know cleaning my bathroom, scrubbing my kitchen, and scrubbing my floors is not worth the pain. I'd rather save that energy and go for a walk with my family or something other than scrubbing my toilet or my tub, and so I pay somebody to do that. You guys can have that all done for free. It's called companion care. Most companies have PAPA. It's through Medicare Advantage plans. The advertisements that you see on TV, I just want to warn you, because my goodness, I get people that get trapped all the time, or those calls. They say, oh yeah, everything's zero, you get food allowances, pest control, utility bills. It's for folks that have full Medicaid. As a single person, you have to make less than $1,200 a month with only $2,000 in cash assets. And as a married couple, you have to have make less than $1,500 with $2,000 in cash assets. So most of the population is not going to qualify for those plans. But they advertise and they get you to call, and then they have your information. And a lot of times, like last month, 5 people got switched from those stupid phone calls because they got their information and switched them. Didn't look up their doctors, didn't look up their prescriptions. So today I'm going to see one of my customers who have been with me for years because she can't go to her PT anymore, she can't go to her chiropractor, and her primary care is not covered. And if we don't do something this month, she has to wait till January to go see her doctors again. So don't talk to those folks. They all have to have cleanings and x-rays for $0. All the Medicare Advantage plans have to have that. Medicare changed the rules a couple years ago. They all have vision for free, unless you have to have more than one eye appointment a year for diabetics. Then that second appointment, sometimes you'll have to pay a specialist copay, but they all have an eyeglass allowance. Most of them are $100. Hearing, some plans are better than others. So like I have a customer who needs hearing aids. We're going to switch their plan to a plan that covers 75% of their hearing aids next year. And then once they get their hearing aids, you can do something different if their life changes. So these plans have so many benefits now for Medicare Advantage plans. Now Medigap plans do have discounts, and a lot of them at a gym, because the activity is so vital to your health. They know that if they can keep you active, you're going to have less health problems. So a lot of the plans now, even Medigap plans, have gym membership for free.
So you talked about some of those things like light duty housekeeping, which is just, to me, wonderful benefits that I think a lot of seniors don't really know that it might already be on their plan. But let's talk just a little bit more about that concept of how people can stay safe and not get switched from a plan without their knowledge, because I think that it is so important to have one person in their corner who they can call at any time to ask a healthcare question of, and who is truly looking for doing that pre-planning for what they have coming up and getting them to the right plan. But I know that people do get switched without their knowledge.
All the time. Before COVID, these call centers all over the country were really not existent. I mean, I even get Medicare calls like 15 times a day. It's just crazy. Put the person that you trust in your phone, and if the name comes up, answer the phone. If you don't recognize that number, let it go to voicemail. These people will not leave a voicemail. So if they leave a voicemail, you can just call them right back. And a lot of times, my customers will do that because they didn't have my number in the phone, and they call me right back once I leave a message. But truly, if they ever ask for your personal information, just hang up. If they say, "Hi, is this Jeff?" and you say yes, they have to record the calls now. You just said yes. They can record that yes, and you're giving them permission. What are you giving them permission for? You didn't answer a question, but you said yes, and they're recording the calls. Now, Medicare's trying to crack down on that, and the whole application, if it's over the phone, has to be recorded. But once they have your information, it's very hard to trace back that you didn't truly give them permission to change your plan. And so just don't answer those calls. Don't call the 1-800 numbers or the junk mail you get. Call somebody you trust and say, "Hey, I have questions." I get probably 15 to 20 calls a day from my customers asking me various questions. How do I do this? Who do I go for this? What's the number for this? I am happy. I'm so glad they called me instead of one of those 1-800 numbers and got one myself.
Yep, and something I revisit constantly in this series is that idea of having resources for all these different things that you might need before you necessarily are in a crisis. So that idea of, having a physical therapist, knowing AARP, being familiar with senior living options through Tom or visiting Samaritas, things like that, before it comes to a point where all of a sudden you need something desperately and you don't have time any longer to do that research. So here are your opportunities to visit all these people and ask all the questions that you want. So that is the majority of the program today. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions before we do our drawings. So hopefully we'll be able to hear better in this room, but we're going to start right there.
This is a question for Jenna, and can you just describe the difference between your company and physical therapy versus like a personal trainer?
Yes, absolutely. So there are quite a few differences. For one, if you are coming to us for the physical or occupational piece of things, we do accept insurance. So we participate with Medicare and most Medicare Advantage plans, whereas a personal trainer is going to be solely cash. The other thing is that we are a team of 4 physical therapists and an occupational therapist, and all of us have licenses in our profession, right? So the physical therapists all have doctorates in physical therapy, and our occupational therapist has a master's in occupational therapy. So you're not only getting the exercise, but you're getting that skilled expertise of the body and the physiological system of the body. So another benefit of having us come in and help you out as opposed to a personal trainer is, we have the ability to say, I know your shoulder's been hurting a little bit, but it doesn't really feel mechanical. This is something for your doctor to look at in a very calm, cool, and collected way. And a personal trainer is not going to do that. A personal trainer is just going to be like, well, let's keep going. Maybe don't do that so high. So, yeah.
Just make sure this fall is your open enrollment. It starts October 15th to December 7th, and if you you were even considering, just look, it's worth looking, especially for your prescription drugs. Most folks can only change during this time for the most part. There's some differences if you move or whatever, but for the most part, most people can just change these next couple months.
Jennifer, is your book in the library? Or where can it be purchased?
She asked if my book is in the library. Kent District Library and Grand Rapids Public Library have it on order right now, so it will be available in the library as soon as they get it in. It was just published, so it's hot off the press, literally. And it's available on all major resellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, all of the online stores. I'm a big proponent of local bookstores though, and supporting local. And so all local bookstores, if they don't have it, they can order it.
Thank you.
Do you have copies today in the back that people can purchase?
Great question. I do. I have books in the back, so I will be back there after the presentation. Would love to say hello to you, and I do have the copies available. It's a great book for women and book clubs and wine and girlfriends, and so there's also a companion book club kit that you can get with it, and so I can share more details about that as well.
Teresa, I still don't understand the difference between Medigap and the other plan.
Really, the basic is a Medigap plan, you're paying ahead of time, so you're paying a monthly premium every month, so that really when you have anything medically go wrong, you're not gonna get any bills. The only thing a Medigap plan, it has a $226 deductible. After that, you're just paying your premium, you don't get bills. My mom had shoulder surgery, she's back there, but physical therapy, that first appointment, she paid her $226. All of that, there was no bills. A Medicare Advantage plan, you're paying as you go. So it's $0 a month, but when you go do things, you're gonna use it, you're gonna pay. So it's really, do you wanna budget it into your budget and have one premium a month at $150, whatever a month, it goes up as you get older, or do you just wanna have a $0 a month and pay as you go? It's really up to the person. But I go through that in about 5 minutes. I have a little worksheet and I can explain the whole process.
Anyone else? We've got time for about one more question. And remember that anything, we can always ask questions afterwards just by putting on your feedback sheet that you'd like to be contacted by any of these lovely gals who can answer your questions more fully, and myself as well. So, no more questions? Wow.
One more back here.
When was the open enrollment period again?
Yep, it starts October 15th to December 7th. Yep.